found out about through Rosanna.
I give you the flowery cup.
Thank you.
Whew, it's going to be really cozy.
But yeah, through the dark though is the answer.
Oh, we have our spouses to lean on. So we don't have to like cross legs or anything.
We were going to.
You should
It is-
though.
wrap
You
around
really
each
should,
other.
yeah, like pretzel
I
style.
don't think I can do that. I feel very uncomfortable now for the drinks.
Oh,
Ready
and
to start yoga.
actually, that was very warm.
Aw.
See, we will get warm.
Especially
now.
on the back of my leg. Huh?
Yeah.
Whoa, hey.
See, it's good we're here because we're kind of pushing them together
Yes.
more. And
You'll take
this
that
is
one?
good for their
Okay.
I
souls.
waited for you to swap your hands.
It just whichever one you want. Okay.
The one that says Bob.
Can we switch places now?
No.
This is,
You
this is
already
getting
chose.
a little.
I'm going to
You
do
already
the exact
chose.
same thing to her.
Fuck.
Would you rather have it done to you or watch it being done to your wife?
Whoa! Those are my only choices?
You know it's already her story.
Yeah. No, this is all going in.
Yeah.
This is real stuff. I want people to know what they're getting into when they come to Kansas City.
Oh, it smells nice. It's very oaky.
Okay, everybody have to. Even your kombucha. So we're gonna drink wood.
Stop
for
judging
reserve.
her.
Yeah,
Not!
touch me.
Not judging at all. Mm. Well, this is my Woodford Reserve glass too.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah, I don't.
Have you had Woodford
I
Reserve
don't-
before?
sinuses.
Not. I've thought about it, but I have not purchased
It
it.
does warm the
So
belly.
my normal
That's true.
is Weller's,
Yeah.
and then that's like my cheapo,
Sure. Your
like
Budweiser.
my Budweiser,
Yeah.
basically. And then when I'm having a good time and I'm having like a time of writing or whatever, and I'm not just drinking, Knob is usually my fallback.
Yeah.
But when I have special occasions, Woodford Reserve is
Nice.
my. This is my rich people bourbon
Okay.
because it's over $30. It's like-
I'm with you. I'm
Yeah.
with you. No, I'm the same way. For me, my Budweiser is Sexton, which is a single malt Irish,
okay.
which is very good, and for the price, it's phenomenal.
Mhm.
And that's only like $26. But when I start getting better, I'll do like a Glenmorangie,
Hmm.
because I like the scotches also.
I do too.
God, so much.
I love the smokiness, man.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. And then I don't know. Did you try the Lefroy when you came to the bourbon party?
Yes. Oh my God.
That's like pure peat. There's so few people that can actually enjoy
It'd be fun
that.
to cut out that we're
Because,
talking about
like,
bourbon
I've
at all
actually-
and just
No.
I've
No,
actually
this
got
is for
people
the things
say
you're
to me,
saying.
if you're coming to my house, don't bring that stuff that smells like rubber tires. Because that's what it smells like. That extra super peaty. But that Lefroy, I love that. But I'm big into intense flavors.
Yeah.
You know?
But what I do, so what I want to do first though is get your kind of mystical, spiritual leanings, like your origin of like where you first started kind of becoming really conscious of yourself based upon like where you're at now.
Okay.
And so either one of you can, just jump in and you can ask us questions too. I don't give a shit.
Well, for me, it's I mean, I guess the same for anybody. It's a multi-part story, but it actually starts when I was really, really, really young. My great-grandmother was Abenaki right off the reservation. And when I was born, my mom was single, so great-grandma was in charge of raising me while mom worked. And she is my first memory, my first conscious awareness of being here and being me is holding hands with her through my crib. And I got out of my crib when I was just about a year and a half old, because that's when my sister was born. So I can remember consciously being in my crib, sticking my hand out and holding my great-grandmother's hand while she talked to me and I fell asleep. And then I can remember the first time I got into my big boy bed. And she sat on the bed next to me and scratched my back. To this day, I can't stand to have my back rubbed. But if you scratch my back, I'm your best friend for the rest of your life. So I know that that's from them. It's true. It's true.
And if you
Good to
scratch
know,
and
good to
then rub afterward, it
That's
ruins
the worst
everything.
thing. I mean, what is wrong with
It
people?
ruins everything, and I have to start over.
What is wrong with people? You do a good back scratching, and then you go, "How's that?" Well, it was fine until you ruined it. But she
And I do that all the time.
spent pretty much every waking moment with me, and I with her. From being in the kitchen and my passion for cooking, to just taking a walk downtown and looking at people and teaching me at 3 or 4 years old how to trust my gut. You know, to look at somebody who I've never met and to say, how does that person make you feel? And when I'd tell her, she would never try to change my mind. She would just say, remember that feeling. And to this day, I use that when I meet people. You know, I just automatically know how we're going to react with each other.
Yeah, you failed in this regard. You didn't get the warning whenever we...
Well, you know, it's interesting because I mentioned this to you the last time we got together, and I was actually mentioning it to Autumn upstairs the first time you and I met in person. The first thing you said to me was, if I get really quiet, I'm sorry, I'm socially awkward. And that endeared me to you because that was actually one of the most bravest things you could have done. Was to just come right out and say, this is me. Sorry.
Boy,
You know?
I always try to start every relationship with apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
But the amazing,
Sorry, I am me.
disclaimer.
but the
By
amazing
way.
part of it is you've changed so much in the 2 years since I met you. I don't see all of that. You still try to have that little bit of persona, that little comfort level you have with being quiet and awkward and not wanting to be outgoing. However, in the last 2 years, it's changed immensely.
Well, like my kids say, outwardly I'm very, exuberant and blah, whatever adjective you want to describe it. Inside I'm just a sad clown, just crying, scared of the world.
That's not funny. It's funny.
No, it is.
It
It's,
is,
but it's very, she knows because it's very true.
Yeah.
I'm terrified right now. I'm freaking out. Anyway, but you grew up in the East Coast, though, right?
I did. I grew up in Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts, so don't assume that I'm from Boston because the majority of people from Massachusetts are not from Boston.
Right. I told you I was born in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah. So we're both East Coasters.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I was only there for a year.
Right. I was there until 3 years ago. I lived there.
4 years.
Huh?
Almost 4 years. 3.5. I'll stop interrupting.
Wait, what?
your story. I was thinking it
I
was
moved out
longer.
here at the end of June in 2015. So 3.5 years. See, she's used to having a baby, so we talk in months.
It's true.
And now that
It makes-
he's
each month makes a
21
difference.
months, I say he's almost 2
Right.
because I'm tired of counting.
Right.
And so if I've been out here 3 years, I've been out here 3 years until I've been out here almost 4. And that's just it. So, but yeah, I lived in Massachusetts the entire time, Western Massachusetts. I never left what they call the Pioneer Valley, right along the Connecticut River.
You are such an East Coaster.
Yeah.
Your whole personality. East Coasters are that way, too.
I don't know what
it's
that
like,
means, but
well, it's just there's this...
I'm a masshole.
A mess.
But
That's what we call ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, like the friend who brought us together, really, Rosanna, she was an East Coaster, and she was just, I mean, it's this like sharp personality, but not in a bad way.
Right.
It's just direct,
Yeah,
and
direct.
you
Very
know
direct.
what you like.
Yeah.
I mean, like here, everybody's waffly about everything. I don't really know much about West Coast personalities, but East Coasters just know what they fucking like. They're down with it, and if you don't like it, you're just wrong, and you have to be okay with being wrong. And they'll love you. They'll love you anyway, but you're just wrong.
It doesn't make you a bad person.
Midwesterners are stabilizers.
That's the truth. And when you look
That's
at
a
the
good way
groups
of
of people,
putting it.
Scrooge.
Yeah,
we
sure.
tend to be like
Yeah.
more, is that Southern
everybody
hospitality,
happy?
maybe passive aggressiveness because we don't speak our mind all the time.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Yeah.
I see a lot more resentment happening in the Midwest people I meet from the coasts because they just say how it is, and the other people are totally okay with that.
one of the things that has amazed her about me is that I'll say pretty much anything to anybody, and it's fine. where her experience would be, wow, if you talk like that to somebody I know, they're going to go off or they're going to be hurt or something's going to happen.
Always
But
considering the
it's
other.
all
but he
in,
says
and,
it-
and I don't do it in a mean way. It's in
Sure.
delivery.
Yeah.
This is the truth as I see it. I'm not calling you a douche. I'm just saying
I might.
what you're saying is kind of douchey.
Yeah.
You know?
What you're
Yeah.
saying is douchey.
I admire that actually. I like it
Yeah.
because when it's weird because when I do speak directly, you know, a lot of people, especially here in the Midwest, are just like, "Whoa." It's like, hey, I'm not
God.
hating you.
Right,
or
we pissed off
nothing.
Daniel.
Yeah. Oh God, Jesus. How many times I've heard that? It's
Yeah.
like, no, it doesn't mean like. First of all, just because I'm loud and sharp doesn't mean I'm mad.
Right.
And it doesn't mean I'm even just like pissed off or frustrated. I
Right.
just know what I'm talking about. Even if you think I'm wrong, and you can think that because it's adorable. I got a little bit of these. I took a little bit of that because I
He's
was
got the
born
condescending part down.
there. Got it really well. Well, it's Philadelphia.
Is that on your word of the day calendar today?
What?
Condescending?
Condescending?
How many times can I be condescending?
Oh, maybe. Every time I'm condescending, everybody scream real loud.
Like on Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What?
No, I'm not going to be condescending today. I swear. Okay, so you.
Was that condescending the way you said that?
No. There you go. Thank you.
So
Ah.
she died when I was 10, and I lost pretty much all of. Well, I won't say I lost it. I didn't lose what she was teaching me. I still used it, but I came back into being human, back into living the life that was in front of me,
Right.
regardless of what it looked like. And it wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always fun. I'm not trying to look for a poor Matthew story here, but you know, my mom didn't teach me the right way to look at women. She taught me that women always had a backup plan. That if things weren't working out and you argued one too many times, it was time for another one. And she always had somebody in the shadows waiting to replace the next one. So I learned that that's what women did. I didn't judge it. I just experienced it because I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And so growing up and starting to get into relationships, I just expected it. And if I ever got in an argument with a girlfriend, I was pretty sure it was just about over. And somehow it manifested that it was just about over. Whether it was true or manifested, didn't matter. It still was over. And then going through a few experiences where I've always believed in something more. I've always believed that this is not the end of things. I've always believed in what people call an afterlife or a life separate from the humanness, but I didn't live in that world. I didn't experience that world until probably after my second divorce, when I was on my own long enough to truly see where I wanted to be and knew how far away I was from it, and started getting into energy work. I became a Reiki master. I started meditating more regularly. I used to, back in Massachusetts, I used to, while I was still being that manager, that leader in the retail world, I would come home and then I would go do a night of readings for people. You know, we'd do gallery readings, or we'd have what we called a spirit night or something like that, where I would literally just sit there and any spirit that showed up, I'd talk to whoever was there. And in Western Massachusetts, you can't make a living doing that. So I just did it because it was something I enjoyed, but it never became real. But the meditation helped me a great deal.
So you're already communicating with like other
Yeah.
presences even then?
Yeah.
Like when did you first kind of see that or feel that aspect of yourself coming up? Was it when you were with your grandmother a lot, or?
Well,
It was
that
puberty, wasn't it?
connection, yeah, no,
Like you're an X-Man.
no, not really. Puberty, no, I'm not a mutant. But I mean, I've had spiritual experiences, ghostly experiences, things like that throughout the years. Been in the presence of spirit. Had dreams where the next day something would happen that was dead on to the dream. Been to exorcism of houses and participated in that. I mean, that's stuff that sort of showed up in my life at certain times, but it was never something that I actively pursued. It was just always kind of in the background, something I always believed. I would, people would say, no, this is it. When you're dead, or you go to heaven. And I'm just like, yeah, no, that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem like this could possibly be it. This is all we're here for? Well, shit, But it's, so it's always kind of been there, but it had never been totally active. Until really I got out here. I had finally reached a point in my life where I had to walk away from all the management. I had to walk away with dealing with corporate. It was just making me miserable. I was extremely overweight. I was drinking way too much, and I was never leaving my house except to go to work or to go to the store, and
sounds like me right now.
yeah, well, at least here you're working on something. I was going home and opening a bottle of scotch and cooking a ribeye and a bunch of potatoes and sitting in front of the television and not doing anything else. And I finally reached a point where I couldn't do that anymore. I knew it was killing me. So I quit. I walked away from a really good job because it was making me unhappy and unhealthy, and didn't do anything for several months. Just trying to figure things out. And I came out here on a fluke. I came out here to Kansas City on a road trip with a friend who was moving to New Mexico. And I stopped here one day, and I stopped at Unity Village, and I took one step on grounds, and something went through me and said, you need to be here. So when I got back home, I made arrangements. I sold everything that didn't fit in my pickup truck, and I drove 1,400 miles that June. I drove 1,400 miles to a place that I had never lived, having no idea for sure what was going to happen. But I knew I wanted to completely change my life, and I did, because I started eating better. I still enjoy, a good drink and a good microbrew, but I lost weight. I became healthier. I started working a couple of days a week at the bookstore. The job I walked away from, Starbucks, running a Starbucks, is actually what got me in at Unity, because I started working in the coffee shop where they sell Starbucks products. And of course, 2-3 days a week doesn't help you survive. So I was doing Reiki, and I was doing some coaching, and I finally got a full-time job at the prayer ministry at Silent Unity. And that was enough for me to get an apartment. While I was in the bookstore, I met this amazing human being with no intentions of starting my life over in that way.
That's the way it works,
I know.
man.
Yeah, you got to figure. I had already had 3 boys, all grown. I was done with that part of my life.
Imagine how long do you have? 4 years?
No, that's it.
Then
No,
being
no.
out and then starting
What you're
over.
thinking you're going to
Yeah.
speak, don't speak it.
Yeah.
Don't speak that into my future.
But it's
I'm not
exactly
wanting to
what happened.
silence you necessarily,
Yeah.
but
But that's exactly what happened, because if I had been in Massachusetts and somebody had said to me, Matthew, you're going to move to Missouri, meet somebody, get married, and have
Have a
another
baby.
child,
Uh-huh.
I would have said, fuck you, I'm
fuck
staying in
that.
Massachusetts. I'm staying in Massachusetts.
Mass
What are
all
you
the
talking
way.
about?
Yeah. I couldn't have known, because I wouldn't have come.
Yeah.
And then I met her, and all of a sudden we're in love, and we're talking about having a baby, and we're getting married and having a baby, and
Here we are.
I'm sorry.
and
Sorry.
it's the greatest thing I've ever done, because now not only did getting the job at the prayer ministry change my life, but within a year of doing that, I decided it was time to go back to doing what I did best, and that's pretty much telling other people what to do. So I became a supervisor, and then a year after that, I now head up a completely different department at the ministry, kind of looking at all the aspects of prayer that don't involve the telephone. So the internet prayer, the app prayer, how else can we reach out to people, that kind of thing, and to really bring mindfulness and meditation and prayer into a world that's stepping away from that kind of thing. So it's an interesting position to be in, and exactly why I came out here. Along with whatever other spiritual work we do with channeling and readings and putting on retreats and all of that other stuff. It's been an interesting 3 years, that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you, like I felt like definitely I was encountering a being that was in the midst of the synchronicity of their life. You know, where all the strands of everything that like fate has in store for them, and I use that in quotes because I don't necessarily believe in fate other than what you create, but you were just, everything was like all the puzzle pieces were fitting together, and yeah, it's been really interesting to watch.
It's still interesting to watch because the puzzle isn't done yet.
Yeah.
And
well, it won't be now.
Sometimes you're pretty sure that these pieces don't belong.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting. It's interesting the comment you made about fate, because I too don't believe in fate, but I believe in destiny.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference, because fate implies that you have no control.
Right.
But destiny, however, is all up to you.
Right. Yeah. To fulfill that if you want.
Right.
It's a choice. So let's switch gears a little bit. You grew up here.
I did. I grew up in Olathe, actually.
Jesus
Not
Christ.
too
What
far
part?
from here.
He wasn't here then.
Really?
Yeah, I know, yeah. It wasn't.
They thought he was, but it wasn't him.
I grew up on 100.
That was Joseph Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
I grew up in Briarwood off 135th and Black Bob.
135th and
Yeah,
Black Bob.
right behind Lowe's.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so actually,
We almost lived there.
and that's where a lot of
We could have lived
like
in your
my
house.
trauma. Like, it's so weird being actually back in Olathe, because this is where like 90% of my trauma happened, like in my life. So it's good to be here on a
Go Big O.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a good afternoon.
Yeah. Sorry, dude.
No, it's
We're going to
good.
bring it all up.
Let's see. So I grew up in Olathe, and I knew from a very, very, very young age that there was always something more, and I never really had words to describe it. And I remember my dad telling me, my dad suppressed. He got really scared with stuff that happened with him when he was younger, and suppressed his connection, I would say. And so whenever I kind of had questions, it was kind of like I'm not going to talk to you about it, because it scared him so much. So it was probably, I would have just like random things happen, just like spiritual encounters happen throughout my younger years. And I wouldn't say they were all good, there's definitely a lot of dark and light in there. And it was like 8th grade or freshman year, it was like Christmas or Thanksgiving, and my family, one of my aunts started to talk about past lives, and I was like, it does exist, I knew it. And so in high school, I remember like my friends and I would get out like the Ouija board, and we would like read cards, so I think I definitely delved into like more black magic in high school.
Never.
Yeah, like
It's funny because
maybe not the best.
Party games.
when we
Yeah.
have like
Opening up
parties
portals.
and stuff, our kids will like go and they'll make makeshift Ouija boards out of like paper and stuff,
Yeah.
and they'll come and just tell us about it, and we're like, "Good kids,
Yay. So,
make your little Ouija
Have
board."
fun summoning Satan.
Yeah.
so I definitely think we were opening up I opened up a lot, but I didn't really. When I was 19, I had heart surgery, and I remember I had 4 surgeries in 5 years, from age 19 to 23.
What?
And
Do you mind?
yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah, so my first surgery I had, I was a freshman in college, I actually had a breast reduction surgery. And the fact that I lived through that was amazing, because I was so sick when I got home, I couldn't even walk across the room without having like pain down my arm. And I was 19, and I was a gymnast for like 13 years, and so I thought like my ribs were out or something was going on. And so I got so sick, I finally ended up going to the doctor, and she checked my heart. She's like, something doesn't sound right. So they did an EKG, and then that day they sent me down to get a CT scan, and they're like, something's wrong with your heart. So long story really short, I had full-blown pulmonary hypertension. They gave me 10 years to live with a heart and lung transplant, and
Shit.
they didn't know why I had it. Then when they went in there when they did a heart cath, where they take like a camera and they go up your artery into your heart, they're like, did you know you have a hole in your heart? No, I had no idea. So the bigger the hole is,
Yeah, it's not supposed to be there.
yeah. So the bigger the
I
hole
thought I had
is,
4 of them.
Right.
yeah. so the bigger the hole is, the smaller the murmur. You can't hear it. And it was so big that I had all this blood going through my lungs the whole time instead of going through my body.
Holy
And so by the time they
shit.
did surgery, like my left side of my heart was twice the size. My pulmonary artery was like totally inflated. And so I had heart surgery, so they put a device in my heart. And then after the surgery, when they took the sheath out, like the tube, it ripped my artery and I had internal bleeding. So I had a lot of body trauma that happened to me. And so, but once they fixed the hole, then all the pulmonary hypertension stuff went away. Then like 2 years later, I had my tonsils out and sinus surgery. And then a year or two after that, I had my gallbladder out. And this was before I was really into like holistic and like knowing about trauma and about how that all affects the body. And so I would say during my teens and my 20s, through that time, someone was like, you should go get like a positive uplifting book. And I was like, okay. And so one of the first books I picked up was a book on the Dalai Lama. And so that kind of like reading about Buddhism kind of opened up my mind. And I remember it was after my heart surgery I started doing yoga. And then right after I was 19, from like 20 to 23, it got really dark. Lots of drinking, really stepped away from anything spiritual at all. And I think thanks then stuff really started shifting. I was very unhappy. I was getting sick and I had a chronic illness and I knew stuff needed to change, so I prayed and got the guidance to go through yoga training. And right after I got in, I was dealing with like PTSD, anxiety, depression. My psyche was split into like 1,000 pieces, and I was guided. I was getting energy work done. I was open. I started getting energy work done when I was like 19, and I was guided to someone called to CJ Martis. And once I worked with her, I would say my very first encounter of like true light were the seraphim angels. And so she works very closely with the seraphim. And when I reached out to her, and it was my yoga teacher that knew her, that she was like, you need to go see her. And she said that when she saw me, the angels told her, they said, you have to keep her alive. And she, for 2 or 3 years, worked on me almost every single day, keeping my body alive. And through my 20s, I probably had over 500 entities removed from my body. I was chronically dealing with a lot of darkness. And so it wasn't until I met Matthew that I had a rebirthing experience. You can call it a walk-in, which I also heard that if in the West Coast, if you use the word walk-in, it means something very different than what, it can be like, not great stuff. So the soul that was in this body left, and then I came in, and then I met Matthew. And so that's when my journey of CJ really kept me alive, and I did a lot of my work, so much healing, all my trauma. And then when I met Matthew, that's when I was able to really come back to the light completely within myself. And that's when all the channeling work started. And through that time, I did like yoga training like all through my 20s. And like yoga was like the main thing that kept my body going through these spiritual shifts and awakenings. And so I actually have a really dark path back to the light. I can consciously remember when I was 16, it was after I lost my virginity, and I had a very negative experience with the man and my friends being very unsupportive. And it was at that moment I remember shifting to the dark side. I was so upset. I said, I'm going to be very vengeful. And I remember it was at that moment, and I walked in the dark from age 16 to 29 when I physically asked to come back to the light. And CJ actually brought me back right before 3 weeks before my 30th birthday. And then it was when I met Matthew, it was really just healing, and the channeling work started to begin, and our business, The Lighted Truth, started to awaken. And we realized that we had a pregnancy scare, and we're like, oh my God, we're supposed to like bring in a child. And I never wanted kids. And
That's the most terrifying thing you've talked about so far.
Well, you know, it's
Yeah.
funny because she brings that up, but it put us in a position where we had to truly think about it.
Yeah.
And Spirit has a sense of humor, especially Saint Germain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Saint Germain came through and said, "Well, you've heard of Schrodinger's cat. This is Schrodinger's baby.
Oh, Jesus.
At this point,
Well, in the womb and not in the
right?
womb at
Yes,
the same
you are
time.
absolutely pregnant, or you are absolutely not pregnant.
100%.
What are you going to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And we both weren't that scared. We couldn't figure it out, but something in us said, okay, if this happens, okay. And then 2 days later, she had her period, and we were disappointed.
And then we got
That tells
pregnant.
you right there.
We got
It wasn't
pregnant.
it was a,
Crap.
oh.
And then I got pregnant within like 5 or 6 weeks. I mean, I
Like
got
once we started trying.
yeah, it was like boom. It was really fast.
Yeah.
And so what we learned was about our past was that to bring little man in and the light that he is, we had to embody some of the deepest, darkest qualities of humanity
Right.
to bring that light in. And so I remember in a channeling from Spirit, them saying, you've already given up and done so much for him, and he's not even here, you know. And so through the healing, we took on some of the most horrendous things to experience in a life that was done to us and that we have done to others in both ways, so that we could heal that, so that it created such darkness that his light could be brought into this earth. And so it's been quite an interesting journey and healing with that. And now our work is definitely progressing. You know, we're been teaching lots of yoga and finding the power of the poses, especially through like restorative and therapeutic yoga, is preparing people's bodies to hold their light. Is to really integrate that. And
I think you're right on though when you were talking about the darkness, because one of the things that I know we like to teach, especially I like to teach this, but it's very prevalent as a credo of not just shamanic work but Qabalah, is that like the whole purpose of darkness is so that light has something to fill. You know, light is always that thing that is moving forward, you know, and really darkness is that container for the light to fill up, you know. And so that's why anytime that we teach and we go through apprenticeship and initiation, you always have to go into the underworld and to the dark first before you can ascend. And that's why we do a lot of our ceremonies at night and in the complete darkness, is to make room for that light to move through. Because if you're just in a space where it's just everything is all, I mean, we've talked about this, when you're just even in a workshop of people or whatever, and everybody's just all lights all the time.
Oh, unicorns.
And it's just, then it's like you become really out of balance. And those that are really balanced people will tend to start feeling a little bit more cranky and unsettled because it's too much. You need a little bit of all that. So I think you're right on with your path. So you guys coalesced into Light of Truth, which is the name of we're Lodge of the People, your Light of Truth.
Right.
So what's your prime mission?
It depends on what day you ask us.
Yeah, same.
It's evolved so many times.
Today it's Muppets.
Today it's Muppets. Yes. I hate Muppets.
No! Get out. You just brought up my trauma.
Well, and let's talk about why that happened.
No! Oh, God, no. No.
And I think it's, as it is a living, breathing part of us. And so as we evolve, it evolves. And I think that at first it was fully set up on channeling and energy, and like energy sessions. And then once we were bringing with Orion, we're like, we really don't have time for that as much, So then I thought it was going to shift into an online school, and that crashed and burned. We're definitely not the route we were supposed to go.
I don't want to say it crashed and
No,
burned. I think that it just
didn't-
kind of stopped.
Yeah, it just
Because
wasn't.
it's
what
not like
wasn't
we
what were
launched
supposed
something
to do.
huge and it just failed.
Maybe
Because we
that was
never actually launched it.
Well,
Maybe it's a
online.
future vision that
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
just
you know,
caught
yeah.
early.
So it's just and
I think
so-
online stuff, you have to be doing it the right time at the right moment, and everything has to like sync
do.
together really well.
Yeah.
And
because-
I just don't think it was the right time.
But
That's exactly what it was.
what we're finding now that works perfectly,
retreats.
especially in the last 2 years, is offering retreats every spring and every fall. And now this year we're going to actually offer twice as many retreats. Plus we also do some community service every season. Love in Action. She came up with that one, which is amazing.
Based
So
on the teachings of
every
Mother
single
Teresa.
season, spring, summer, fall, winter, we do something where we get as many people together as possible and help the community in some way. We've gone to harvesters a couple of times and like packed food into boxes and separated cans and things like that for the homeless.
It's very important that we take our spiritual teachings and I in my past have had a tendency to just kind of click with my group, but it's so important now more than ever is to take our spiritual teachings and spread the love.
Yeah.
It's not about who can be the most.
And love is the key. It's not
It's
about success.
love.
Because
Spread
when
that.
we first started, every other word out of her mouth was, "Oh my God, this is going to explode. Oh my God, we're going to become so famous. Oh my God, we're going to make so much money doing this." And it didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And one of the most successful things we discovered was we do all of our work as we do our work, and everything is based on love offerings now.
Everything.
We did our retreat, and we said we need to cover expenses. After that, pay us what you can. But we're going to go into it not knowing what you paid.
Yeah.
We're going to give you everything through full integrity. And then at the end, you pay what you can. And for some people, $40 is all they can afford.
Right.
And for some people, $400 is what they can afford.
Yeah.
And
or
it's
more.
the same to them.
Yeah.
And we found that we financially became more abundant by removing the idea of financial abundance.
Yeah. Well, and that was also.
Boom.
Wow.
But that was also.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah. It was also very much my ego, and I had this dream, or it was something in my consciousness that to be this famous healer, and I had to really drop that completely and really shift that out of my ego and shift it out of my consciousness and know that I'm not here to be a healer in this lifetime. I'm here to be a mother and a teacher, and to open up space, and so I had to do a complete paradigm shift and really get smacked in my face to really see that. But it's the work that we do. We offer on a love offering. No, I am doing my yoga retreat on a set price, and I also offer scholarships.
I mean, you have to. Because you are worth a certain amount,
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no,
And there has to be an energy exchange of some kind.
No,
Yeah,
there is definitely.
absolutely.
So most of our stuff is set up on a love offering, but when spirit calls and it feels, we tune in. It's either is this going to be a set price or is it going to be a love offering, and it comes through very, very clear.
Right.
And we really just get out of the way, and so for our retreats, we have really no expectation of what's going to happen. What we do is we open up a safe space for people to open up, and to connect with other like-minded souls. And we do this through yoga and movement, through meditation, through just talking as a group, connecting with nature.
And through getting the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
Because our first retreat, we had a perfect agenda. And at 6:30 the first morning, we were all going to meet for breakfast. And at 7:30, we were going to clean the kitchen. And then you had 30 minutes. And then at 8 o'clock, we were going to do yoga for an hour. And then we were going to have a morning meditation. And then we were going to do, and every single time frame, including a little free time, was all mapped out. And all of that went out the window right at breakfast
Right
the
at
first
the beginning,
day.
it was like,
Right at breakfast the first day, because Spirit wanted it to be something else. And we ended up spending more time talking, more time meditating, more time at the meadow top. We spent what was supposed to be a half-hour sunset meditation sitting there for an hour and a half, watching the most amazing sunset I've ever seen in my life.
talk about
A sunset that
shadow
never
and
ended.
light.
It
Yeah.
was just
How
incredible.
could we see the beautiful sunset? Because of the shadows.
Right.
Right,
It was
yeah.
just
That-
sat
that-
there
that
enjoying
we
this
could see that.
amazingness. We looked at, it was one of those nights where there were a few clouds. So everything was beams of light, beams of light, beams of light.
Nice.
And then the next morning we have our meditation, and all of a sudden Spirit just comes through me and says, this is what it's going to be. And we started talking about the shadow and reminding everybody of that meditation the night before and how beautiful it was and how it would not have been the same except for the beams of shadow. Because you don't get beams of light unless you have beams of shadow.
Fuck yeah.
And remember that the darkness, the way most people see it, is a moral judgment. Darkness isn't bad.
Right. Yeah.
The moral judgment and how we see it and perceive it is bad.
Yeah.
But darkness is the balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boom.
Okay. Done.
Mic drop.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We found over the years as we've taught that like our most effective moments are when we put away the outlines
And the notes.
and the notes, and then
Yeah.
we just open up like a fucking chalice and just receive like what needs to come through, and just being in the moment. And but
Because what comes through in the moment is so much more than what we could dream of.
So much more. So much.
Usually.
Oh, I wish I had thought of this.
yeah.
What an amazing meditation
Couldn't
that
have
was.
mapped that out.
Couldn't have written it.
Now I think though, because this is the ceremonialist in me too, but that like having a plan going in is good. You just have to be able
It
to
is.
release the plan, because you need to have that preparation set up,
You do.
because it's like if you think of ritual magic, you always have to like draw your circle to start your magical working.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're doing with your outline and just prep. You're orchestrating the space, but then whatever happens inside of it's going to happen inside of it.
You also have to look at the other people that you're inviting into this space, because most people in their humanness are not going to come to something that says, well, we're going to have a treat and just kind of see what happens.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what
They
am I
need-
coming for?
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
we'll find out when we
don't
get there.
know.
Yeah.
And
Although we
there.
should
And
do
how much is
that
this gonna
though.
cost me?
That's actually that's
see
a
what
really
happens.
that's
It might
a really,
just be us, but that's okay. But to be able
We're
to
gonna watch the sunset.
have an agenda and say, this is what we're looking for. Like our next one in the spring is releasing the inner child. And we're going to spend 3 days just playing. And
beautiful.
also doing some nurturing, some supporting, getting rid of some of that child stuff.
all that. I thought about bringing my comic books and action figures.
Yeah,
And
that, bring it.
We were actually going to bring the Hot Wheels tracks.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Play with the cars.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
good stuff. I mean, and just, when was the last time you got to let that child out and play? There's this show on
That is
Netflix called Beat Bugs, which our son is fascinated with. And
Sounds
every
horrible.
single, no, you'd actually like it, because every single episode is based on a Beatles song.
Oh, that's
What?
awesome.
Every
Yeah.
single episode has a lesson that's based on a Beatles song.
Oh my gosh,
and they
that's
actually
adorable.
sing the song in the episode. And it's fascinating. And we're not even, we get days where we're tired of watching it, but
I'm at
for the
the
most
point
part,
where
we're
I'm-
okay with watching it.
I've
It's
watched
like
it, I've heard
Moana.
it so many times.
We
Right.
watched Moana 50 times.
Yeah.
51 was too much.
Right,
Jesus.
right.
You know? But so,
I'm almost
but,
at that. No, I am at that cusp.
yeah,
I'm over it.
exactly. But to stand in the living room and dance to Beat Bugs and sing and go around the living room, it's a little bit creepy if you're doing it by yourself.
Right, but if you have
As
your
an
toddler
adult.
there-
Nah, it's,
It really, no, it is.
no.
You're trying to defend something?
It really is.
I don't know.
But with him, it's fun, you
As
know.
long, yeah.
So we let the.
I'd
child
have to
go.
hear it first before making a judgment on that.
Well, it's on Netflix, dude. You
Yeah.
can
Check
watch
it
The
it.
out.
opening is all you need is love.
Aw,
Love is all you need.
that's awesome.
And each bug represents a different personality type. So you got the
That's
nerdy one,
awesome.
you've got the actiony one, you've got the egoistic slug, you know, you've got the little baby that's always trying to learn stuff, and then you've got the grounded, actually aware one. I mean, it's an incredible show.
That's awesome.
Beat Bugs.
Highly recommend.
Bugs.
Watch Beat Bugs. on
We'll give it a
Netflix.
Check it out.
shot.
If you like the Beatles, and I don't like the Beatles.
Yeah.
What?
I'm sorry.
He's
I'm
the only
sorry.
person that doesn't like the
I
Beatles
think
I've
the
ever met.
Beatles are completely overrated.
Wow.
I think that they were, actually, I won't say they. I will say John and Paul and George are amazing poets. And every single one of them is a mediocre musician.
Yeah.
And Ringo doesn't even make mediocre.
Yeah.
He sucks.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Peter Best was a
I just
far
lost
better drummer.
every subscriber from my YouTube channel.
Peter Best
And
was
we're
a
done.
far better drummer, but he was too good looking. So they put in funny looking Ringo,
Wow.
who can keep a
Wow.
4/4 beat.
No.
And that's it.
Well, so I
love
love the Beatles. I
And that's
appreciate
okay.
them,
Yeah.
but I
We were
don't
raised on
I
them.
don't also attribute them as being the band that just changed music forever,
No.
like a lot of people.
No.
And for me, that was mostly like Pink Floyd is like my big, like when I first listened to them. I
so
was
you're
just
for
like,
the wall.
totally 100%. Right now I am because I want to go back to work. No, I'm not. I don't hope that situation gets resolved somehow.
Talking about I'm gonna open a can of worms. Never mind.
It's okay.
I was like, talk about a toddler running a country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, oh, that like I just see this wounded child just having temper tantrums, running.
Let's clarify
Attempting-
though.
attempting
So, but
to
you and
run.
I talked
I,
about this.
I want to clarify. At first, well, yeah, there's that. But I think that everybody that's been running this country for a very long time really is toddlers. It's just some
No.
have covered themselves up better than
Not
most.
all of them are president.
And I think that I think that what he's doing is that he's bringing something up for us all right now to be able to look within ourselves and to look at what we've actually been allowing this whole time.
Yeah.
He's just overt with it.
No,
Yeah.
he is.
And there's some people on the right that aren't complete lunatics that kind of sort of just voted for him to just expose that, to just say, well, we feel like everything's been corrupt anyway. Let's just put the grenade
Put it all out on
out
the
there.
table.
What he's actually done such a great service, and
Right.
because he has exploded the shadow all over.
Exactly.
Sure.
Like I mean, nobody else. Well, I don't know that. I don't know, but he has played his part well.
Yeah.
And
But I do think that there's a lot of shit going on that we're not aware of,
Oh, yeah.
that we don't have control over,
Yeah.
and that if anything, for all of his faults, that's what Trump is definitely doing, is getting a lot of people aware of like how much corruption has been going on. Because even on the left, because a lot of people are finding out, a lot of these younger Democrats coming in, that wow, even the Democratic establishment is just fucking insane corrupt and
Yeah.
won't allow people coming in without adhering to a certain standard
Right.
based upon how much money you can make. I mean, I experienced that myself because I decided to run right after. And I went to a Democratic forum where they were asking for candidates, and they did not like new ideas. They didn't even like teamwork. I put forth the proposition of like, oh, so there's all these people wanting to run in my district. How about we all pull together? We find out who would be the best to actually be the candidate, and then we all support that when they're like, no, we want you to compete. What they want to do is see how much money each person could fucking raise.
Right.
And it was like, wow, fuck, done.
Yeah.
Done. I'm not going to be a part of that.
Right.
But there's younger people coming in that are discovering that how corrupt the system is and exposing that corruption.
Right. See, that's the thing. Young people now, I'll say millennials, they know they have a public voice, and they've been using it since they were teenagers.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be shut up.
Yeah.
Now, we've got somebody in the White House who uses his public voice to spread negativity, to spread hatred, to spread lies. But we've got these young people coming in that know how to use their public voice, that know if I say this here in this way, somebody's going to listen. And you look at all the women that were elected, all the young people that were elected, all the minorities that were elected
All
in this
the
last
natives
election,
that
all
were
the
elected.
natives that were elected. And all of that is so important now. As long as they keep in mind, they have to keep doing what they're doing. They have to keep saying what they're saying, and they have to keep saying it loud, because it's easy for the other stuff to mute them. That low energy is easy to control.
Yeah.
It's that high energy that nobody can grab hold of,
Yeah.
and we need them to keep that.
Yeah.
You and I were having a conversation about Trump a couple of weeks ago.
We were.
We were. And something that came up was, as much as in the humanness we can't stand what he's doing, can't stand what he's saying, can't stand what he stands for, in the energy, in the spirit and all that, we have to respect that somewhere along the line there was some meeting that took place, and somebody said, okay, we need one of you to go be the biggest asshole you could possibly be.
Right.
Everybody's going to hate you.
Right.
And when you say something that's horrible and everybody tells you how much they hate you, you have to come up with something worse the next day. Because we need to expose all this stuff. And somewhere in there, this one spirit went, I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here he is.
Yeah.
And he does it.
Yep.
We all hate him.
Yep. And
But he's doing it
and
for a
that's the
reason.
thing is like we have to learn to like not hate. Like that's
Right.
also our lesson too. Is we have to learn to not hate him
Yep.
for all of that he does and all that he said. What was that? Tell your story. The story about the schoolhouse and the kid that it was taught by your oneness teacher. The kid that was acting up.
Yeah.
Tell it. It's so good when you tell it.
You get a
So
letter?
this is a story of the oneness school that was created in India. My teachers Amma and Bhagavan, who are part of this.
God bless you.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
'Cause
They're part of this beautiful movement. I think they've kind of stepped down now, and someone else has taken over their work. But when Bhagavan was in, I think, his 20s or his 30s, he was part of helping to create this school where they took, I think, about 30 families, and those families' children, they created a school, kind of like what you were talking about that you and some friends are doing. And those children all, they were bringing in new ideas. They were bringing in, spirituality into the curriculum. And everything was very much about honoring and raising these children in the best way possible. And there was one child in this circle that kept coming in and just being, horrible in different ways. And being that shadow aspect, just bullying people, having, just being that force that is the one that everyone's like, oh, stop, you know. And it got to the point where finally the children went to the person who was in charge and said, "Can we?" It was Bhagavan, and they said, "Can we get rid of him? Can we just expel him from the school or something? We don't want this energy anymore. It's causing a disruption in our classes, all of these things." And his answer to them was, "Sure, you can do that, but which one of you wants to bring that through? Which one of you wants to be the one who is bringing that energy into the circle, being the disruptor, being that shadow force, because it's inside of every single one of us, and he just happens to be the one who is in this moment expressing it. So sure, you can get rid of him, but it's only going to arise somewhere else, and who's going to do that? Raise your hand." And so they ended up keeping him there, of course,
And
learning how to. Well, I think it's, eventually you learn that is inside of you. And I think that's what Trump is doing too, is he's helping. I mean, think about all the shadow work that all of us have done in the past 2 years.
All the inner trail stuff, like my toddler, he is representing for me, like, remember how I said, oh, he looks like a toddler running our country? Well, lately, my little girl has been out trying to run things. So that's what he's representing for me, and it is. I mean, that's like what we see in others is what we need to fix in ourselves.
Right. If you're getting pissed off about it, if it's bothering you, if it's causing a rise in you, it's because it's inside of you too, and you're just not seeing that it's in you.
One of the most profound.
No.
One of the most profound changes I've been through in the last few weeks is having conversations like this with other people, especially around Trump, because on Facebook I have had a reputation of being one of the loud ones, being one of the ones that's always looking for what's wrong with him and putting it out in front of everybody and speaking with the anger and speaking with the why aren't we removing this and all of that stuff. And I finally reached a point where it was making me physically ill, and I was never happy, and I was just constantly searching Twitter and searching Facebook for the next thing that he did wrong. And I thought, why am I wasting my time on this? What can I do to change it? And the only thing I could do to change it was to try to find some positive in it. Try to find some way, somehow, what are we seeing here that is actually going to be helpful? And when I shifted that, all of a sudden this great weight was lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to carry the megaphone anymore, and it was a megaphone that I picked up on my own. Nobody handed it to me. Nobody was looking to me for putting Trump in the spotlight at that moment, because we could all see it. You can see it on Twitter. You can see it on CNN. You can see it on everything that exists out there. But I did have people that would interact with it. And I knew that there was that ego in there that was like, yes, they're interacting. Yes, let's talk about it. Yes, let's be mad about it. And I just stopped. And every once in a while, I would post something positive about it. Every once in a while, I would say, yeah, but this. Yeah, but that. And I physically felt so much better about myself. Something else I noticed is my Facebook notifications went way down. And that's okay. Because I didn't need that part of my ego to be fueled anymore.
Yeah.
We all
It's
have
like
ego.
which wolf is being fed.
Yeah,
That was
exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And it was time for that wolf to back off because the rest of us need to eat. You know, and it's I have felt so much better because of that. You have to shift out of that. It's you know, everything is turmoil if you see it as a battle.
Right.
You know, and this may not be a popular thing to say, but I look at some of the people that have been really, really loud in the Me Too movement, or some of the people that have been really, really loud in the pink hat thing. And some of them have been almost militant in what they're saying and what they're doing. And how is that energy any better? It's really not. You know, I get that you've been through a lot. I get, and I don't pretend to understand it because I am white privilege. I get that part. But that doesn't mean I can't be sympathetic. It doesn't mean I can't recognize it. And how is what you're doing and saying any better energy than what you're screaming about and what you're angry about?
And how is that any different from what you were doing with Trump?
It's not.
Right.
It's exactly
It's
right.
exactly
That's
the
my
same,
point. That's
yeah.
my point. I was doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So we have to, at some point, shift out of that. We have to.
Yeah, that's another thing that's exposing is like how we're just even like coming at ideas with one another, because we've lost the ability as a culture to like come to a consensus on idea. Like one of the things I've kind of just been thinking about for decades now is like, where's our plan as a species? Like, where's like the great, like, you know, in Star Trek, that's awesome. With Star Trek, when that planet just kind of came together to just have a direction for them to go in. And like, we don't have that. Every little like gang over here and gang over there is just pulling for their own fucking neighborhoods. And we don't, because we also don't have a way to be able to talk that doesn't cause some kind of separation between ideas. It can't just be like, oh, it's all the same like crystal. It's just the reflective capacity is different when you look at it from different angles. We don't see that at all. It's just like, oh, you have a different idea, so you're fucking racist. That, and it's there's really, I don't think as much like of that kind of like vehement separation going on between people as I think is like we think that there is, just because it's lost in translation. The media builds it up, and because when you actually sit and,
well, that's good TV, man.
Right, it's awesome. It's drama and it gets you excited and it's sexy.
Can you imagine watching a news show where they go, everything in the world was really nice today?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put on Netflix.
Yeah, and that's,
at least I can watch Stranger Things.
Yeah, right. And I think that's where we have to, as a species, we got to stop having like the thrill of existence. Yeah,
right.
You know, and
just,
the
way we think now, the only thing that would actually make that happen is an outside source coming in to attack. If aliens, no, I'm not.
Like, are you talking about like
I'm saying alien attack would bring the world together because of the way we think.
Arrival. Have you seen that one?
Yeah,
have you seen the movie? That's
a good one.
Yeah, I agree.
I love it.
Well,
and that's a peaceful way. Yes.
Right.
That's a peaceful way.
But
man, I would love to have.
I
would love to have
because
Independence
we are
Day.
so separated.
Yeah.
There's no way that everybody here thinks of each other as human beings.
Right.
Yeah.
When they are.
Right.
Yeah.
They are. From the Queen to President Trump to that little island of that is totally legally isolated, that shot a dude with an arrow for trying to show up and bring Christianity, even them.
Yeah.
All of us are human beings.
Yeah.
End of conversation.
Right.
There is no but.
Right.
There is no comma.
but.
There is no colon. There is no semicolon. We're
Travel
all human beings.
20 miles up, you don't see borders.
No.
Imagine what the world would look like. What is it? Imagine all the people.
And we're back to
Just
Beatles.
brought
Back to the
in
Beatles.
beat bugs. My God.
Everything goes back. Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're here. So how do we create oneness? We first start within ourselves. And to do that, we have to get triggered the heck out of us by wonderful for our family. But
Well, now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that. So here's. I'm totally interrupted you.
It's okay.
But I have an idea. And that just. One thing I think
We
we
can tell
need
by
to.
the little light bulb.
It's banging. That I think one thing we all need to let go of right now is the need to think that that oneness and that result of evolution that a lot of us are heading for, it's probably not going to happen right now, and that's okay. What we're doing is that we're paving a way for evolution to move forward, because evolution takes a long time. It doesn't mean that it can't, but like the whole goal of magic is to perform an act to create the result that you want, and then to let go of the result, to let go of it needing to happen right now. Then it'll normally manifest, or if it doesn't, it's going to manifest in its own time. And we have to realize that in the eyes of the gods, like, our lifetime is not even a split second, you know.
Can I add an
There's
addendum?
An animal. You can totally disagree if
No,
you want.
I don't disagree. I'm just going to, looking at the words you said.
There's like a thing back there moving. Okay, I'm good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's your tail.
Spirit.
My tail. My devil's
You
tail.
were talking about evolution taking a long time?
Oh, shit. Just suddenly I sprouted an appendage.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You talked about all of us heading towards oneness, and you talked about evolution taking a long time, as if they were destinations,
Yeah.
and they're not.
Right. No, yeah, totally.
They're absolutely not, and we need to stop thinking of it that way.
Right.
Because you're never going to get there, and you're
not-
always going to be dissatisfied.
It's not a plateau.
It is not. I am not going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I am just going.
Yeah.
This is my oneness right here. Right here. This is my journey. Evolution is nonstop. It's all a process. Does it take a long time? No, it doesn't, because it doesn't end. It's just a thing. It's just what we do. And as soon as we stop worrying about the end game, stop worrying about this goal that's out in front of us, who's going to get to the finish line, I'm more enlightened than you. Well, that statement right there proves you're not. This is enlightenment, because I'm on the journey. That's my enlightenment. And that's it. There's nothing that I'm heading towards. And as soon as I let go of the idea that I'm heading towards something, I can have a nice fucking walk. I can just have a stroll.
That's all it is.
That's
We're
all
just
it
taking
is.
a walk.
We're taking a walk.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, do the Robert Frost thing. I took the road less traveled.
Yeah.
And that has made all the difference. And it had nothing to do with where he was going.
Right.
All that mattered was the road he took. This is what we need to do in order to let go of the whole idea of how do we get there and why is it so fucking hard.
And that also helps us with the teaching of being in the present moment.
Yeah, because there is nothing else. My past is a toolbox, and my memory is tools. And every once in a while, I pull out the wrong tool for what I'm dealing with in the moment, and so I have to pull out the right tool. But all of that, you know, you've got a toolbox somewhere in storage, somewhere in your garage. You've probably lost a few tools and gained a few tools over the years. You use a hammer and a screwdriver and a pair of pliers a lot more often than you use a basin wrench. And in this moment, if you need to hang a picture, you're not going to go get the basin wrench. So in reality, when we're dealing with our emotional shit, our emotional projects, there are memories that are tools. And you can bring up the wrong one and get triggered to shit because it's not going to help you in that moment. So let's think about the right tools that we have and remember that that's all they are. They don't control anything here, but they're useful sometimes.
This thought keeps going like in my head, and it's that, you know, Trump is our president right now in this moment, and that's actually just the way that it is.
It just is.
And it will end.
It will.
And so why are we spending all this time just
Right.
you know,
It'll either
completely
end sooner, or 2020, or maybe 2024.
But it will end.
It will
and
end.
it is where we are now. So if the more we resist it, the more it becomes
It's that
something.
Buddha.
Divine Mother.
Thank you, Buddha.
Thank you, Divine
Buddha.
Mother.
Change is not uncomfortable. Resistance to change is uncomfortable.
Only the resistance.
So
Dropping
Rock's
hatred
done.
and sharing love has been a thing for me for a while. I had a major transformation in that when there was a protest, and I'm going to get this wrong. It was either in Georgia or the Carolinas, where you remember when there was a protest and the van drove into the crowd
Yeah.
and killed a woman.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, there were
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville. Thank you. There were a lot of images in the news of these young men, mostly carrying torches and screaming Nazi epithets, and just it was a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, and everybody was experiencing anger and hatred towards these young men and this group of people. And I was actually in prayer vigil at work one day, and I had been experiencing it myself and just negating it on Facebook and just being angry. And I sat in prayer vigil and I said, help me understand what this is. And the picture of the young woman that was killed came to mind, and the anger started to build up. And then the picture that was all over the media of the torches and the screaming faces came. And I felt that anger build, and I heard a voice say, what if that one right there was your son? Could you still hate him? It's okay to be angry about it. It's okay to see it as wrong. But could you still hate him if that was your son? Because he is somebody's.
Right.
And at that moment, I realized that it was okay to be upset. It was okay to be angry. It was okay to disagree. But I didn't have to hate him. At that moment, I didn't have to hate him. And that changed a lot for me right then and there, through that whole horrible, horrible time that we were dealing with, that we're still dealing with. You know, we look at, everybody with a moral compass is against Nazis. Yes. But do you have to hate the human being?
Right.
And you don't.
Because they're all sourced to the same place.
They are.
Just like,
They are. And every single one of them was a child at one point. Every single one of them was born into something.
and had
That-
the fullest potential.
Yeah.
You know,
Every
and still
single
does
one of
have
them.
that inside.
Right. They all played with trains and balls and dolls and cars. They all grew up going outside and chasing butterflies and lightning bugs, you know. And if they didn't, if they had a horrible child experience, well, then we should hold them and nurture them as well.
Right.
But we don't have to hate them as humans. We don't have to agree with their choices, but we don't have to hate. And that's really a big thing in each of us that needs to change. To just get rid of that.
That's the ultimate resistance.
It really is.
Hatred.
It really is. It's okay to disagree without hating.
Even though you're saying that and you repeat it over and over again, I know there's going to be people out there that hear that and say, "Oh, so you're justifying
No.
what they're doing."
You're right.
And
There
it's
are.
like,
And that's okay.
That's
And
where,
you know what? And you know what? I love you too.
Right. And as humans, we have to learn to be able to yes, as a society, we need to be able to implement actions to communicate to people this act is wrong. You don't get to do that.
Yeah.
You don't get to be a racist asshole who drives your car into a crowd of people.
Right.
That is wrong. We will punish you for that.
Right.
but we're not going to demonize you.
Right.
Because we're all cut from the same thread. It's like with a child, you're led astray. I think we forget that just because these people are adults, that they're really just children inside. Right. They're really just immature, like the president. I mean, they're just immature, like you're saying, a toddler. And we wouldn't hate our children when they may think we hate them because we raise our voice, because they're immature, because they don't get that you can be disagreeable with an action and not hate the individual or even think less of them.
And because they're doing the exact same thing that we got yelled at for.
Yeah.
Well, I think I tell our son now, I say, I am upset right now, and what you did is wrong, and it does not change my love for you. Because I think that's something we tied together, that action and how much we were loved, right? So if we were in trouble, then the love went away. And so, but there is this separation that we need to say that, like, that the love never changes. That is always there. And we have to have boundaries. As a society, individually, as a society, as a family, because that's, just needs to happen. But I always tell him, I said, this doesn't change how much I love you. And it doesn't change that's wrong. Period. And I think when you know that it doesn't stop the love, it helps.
It absolutely does.
I wish I would have been told that.
I was just thinking that's something that probably most people in our generations and beyond before
never been told.
What that wasn't a common practice.
Right.
Well, I think that we're the first generation that's really actually doing that for what, thousands?
Yeah,
thousands of years. I mean, because history, and I think one thing we forget. There's a new book by Steven Pinker that is out, and I forget the name of it. He's a linguist, but he wrote this book that's about how filled with all of these studies that show, like, yes, there's a lot of horrible shit going on, but because all we do is listen to the media, we don't take a look at how things have been in history and where we're at now. We are actually at the most wonderfully advanced age. I mean, we never lived in a period of time in history in which people could have aspirations but beyond the vocation of just fucking putting bread on their table, or the leisure time to just be able to, like, hey, I'm gonna make a webpage and do energy work practice in my spare time, or I'm gonna paint. I mean, that never fucking happened, ever. Even the concept of just equality amongst all people wasn't like a thing, because even though some, like, forefathers said that, it didn't include, like, slaves.
Exactly.
I mean, just like
I can see them sitting around. We're going to say that all men are creative. You don't mean blacks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I can see them saying that.
Yeah.
Of course, not women.
Yeah. Because they're not men.
Right.
They're not men.
Right.
You're not a man.
No, I get it.
Thank God.
Whoa,
you're not
man.
a man. Whoa, man.
Whoa, man.
That's like I think that's an old. That was an old comedy sketch in the 80s.
Was, yeah.
Whoa,
I
man.
can't remember it.
It was Gallagher.
Might have been. Gallagher was
Remember
awesome.
Gallagher?
He was awesome.
Watermelons.
Have
you ever watched that now, though? To just see people just laughing their ass off at him smashing
like
watermelons?
And weird
Yeah, because we showed our children, and they're just like, "You guys laughed at this?
It was
What?
awesome.
It's like Gallagher rocks. Oh, look, he's gonna do 2 apples between 2 tin pit. Oh,
and everybody brought their sheets of plastic. Yeah, Gallagher was genius, though.
Yeah,
he was genius. I love getting audited. I put on my party hat and I walk on down to the IRS. And they say, Mr. Gallagher, what's this $10,000 for watermelons? Well, that's no, you can't deduct $10,000 for watermelons. Well, what is the limit?
What is the limit?
Because I have a lot of watermelons.
Yeah, I have a lot of watermelons. That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's funny.
How brilliant. I mean, again, we live in a day and age where a person could not only make a living but become famous by taking a sledgehammer to a fucking watermelon.
Right. Exactly.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Look at Carrot Top.
Look at
pulled
Jesus.
Toys out of a trunk.
Christ.
And became a steroid-ridden.
Have you seen him now? God, he looks freaky.
He's scary looking.
Because he even, like, not only is he, like, hugely buff in this gross way.
But he's got the steroid horse face going on.
Yeah, but he even, like, wears eyeliner now, too.
Right. And if you're listening, Carrot Top, dude.
Yeah.
Back off the roids.
We love you.
It doesn't change how much we love you.
Yeah, we love you. But
we say it because we love you.
But damn, dude. Damn.
Go back to your trunk full of toys.
Yeah.
I saw him live once.
I back when I was, like, enmeshed in the news all the time, and
you've been using big words.
And
author.
Really?
Yeah.
News is a big word.
No, enmeshed.
News is a big
What was the word you used when I got here? I can't remember.
What?
You used some big word and I gave you shit about it. I can't remember what it was.
Extracalifragilisticexpialidocious.
No, because the word you actually used, you pronounced correctly.
Oh, that's weird, because I don't normally pronounce words correctly at all.
I can't remember what it was, but I gave you crap since you're an author now. You're using big words.
Enmeshed.
It's not a big word. It's only 1, 2,
It's an
3,
unusual
4,
word.
5, 6 letters long.
I thought he was going to say syllables.
That's
You're an author.
That's a total Scrabble word.
You're an author. Can you tell me why monosyllabic is a polysyllabic word?
What? Here's the thing. I may be an author, but I'm an editor. An editor knows all the stuff that you just said.
Right.
Me, I just poop words.
I don't know nothing about grammar.
Yeah, I don't.
Or grandpa.
And I said so. This is what you do as an author. You get a wife who knows grammar, and you pass all the work to her. She corrects the grammar, and then you pass it to a professional editor who says, cool, this is grammatically correct, but what you said doesn't make sense at all. And then they arrange it so that it makes sense, and then you have a book. And that's how it all works.
Okay. Long pregnancy.
My impression of you is totally misplaced.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You thought that I was like...
I thought you were kind of cool and special.
Oh, no, I'm not at all.
You just poop on a page.
You just poop on a page.
Yeah. Quite literally sometimes. It's a wonderful sight.
I'm going to start calling you Skidmark.
Oh, yes.
So all the stuff that we just talked about that's going to be edited out?
Nope. Like, that's the way this whole thing is going to end. We're going to start talking about all this wonderful spiritual stuff, and it's going to devolve into farts and pooping.
And skid marks.
And skid marks.
That's generally the way we roll.
Yeah, that's really how kind of all of our conversations.
Remembering when you reach a point in your life where you finally say, how the hell do I get all through this? And you have to surrender. And so many people are afraid of surrender because it thinks they think it means giving up. But surrender does not mean giving up. It means giving all.
Right on.
Mic drop.
Glass drop. Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay friends.
All right.
Ayagaya.
What he said.